on page Kuf Lamed Beis. And we shall start, of course, within that which you already attempted to understand, but this will need a lot of insight. The line begins with the word ha'eliki, AYIN ha'eliki. It's right below the tzaddik quote, the small tzaddik quote on the side. 5 lines from the top. No, 6 lines from the top. So far we were talking about ilu v'olu, and we explained how the olu is a direct derivative. As a matter of fact, it surfaces automatically from the ilu when the ilu opens itself up. But yesh me'ayin is a completely different story. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about this. How are we going to enter this new arena? Yesh me'ayin is a completely different thought process, concept, than anything that we experience in our most lofty recognition. Yesh me'ayin, that's what yesh me'ayin is, exclusively within the divine properties. There is no worldly muscle for yesh me'ayin. We cannot even surmise how real that is. So therefore, what is the basis of our learning and understanding yesh me'ayin? How do we accept the concept of yesh me'ayin if we don't have any kind of a means of relating to it? The answer to that is yesh me'ayin is clearly based on a profound insight that we have, and which is called emunah. Emunah is even deeper than chokhmah. Emunah does not possess any kind of content. Emunah is what's called a point of truth. This point of truth is not only rooted in the Elokus, but it is a divine input into us. This is not something that we can discover on our own. Avraham Avinu was unique to have identified it on his own. And that identity was based completely on Mesiras Nefesh, total disregard for one's own mitzias, and simply relating and accepting the truth as it is perceived on a higher level, and saying this is the truth. This is the moment. We are privileged in that we were taught about emunah, and we know that this is in fact the reality with which we function, with which we live. Except that when it comes to recognizing it and to think about it, we're always perplexed. But what is it? What do I know? The answer is that this is really beyond knowledge. We don't know it. This is a truth beyond ourselves. And the way it reflects itself by us, really, I shouldn't say the way we know it. The way it reflects by us is that we completely rely upon the Creator. We do not try to understand our world on our own. The world is very real. Not because the world is real, because the Creator is real. This is the key principle of yesh me'ayin. There is no way to explain in seichel or even conceptualize yesh me'ayin. And therefore, as we approach it here in the Maimer, we will try to expose ourselves to a deeper thought process that we possess without being aware of it. So, as I said, we'll start from the line against Leki. Or Midaitoi. Midaitoi. Avo b'yizhav yesh me'ayin. However, we have to understand that when we talk about his havas yesh me'ayin, coming into existence as a yesh from ayin. Indeed, in here we have to clearly identify what we mean by the word yesh. Ayin we cannot define, but yesh, what do you mean by yesh? This we're extremely accustomed to. Yesh means something that has a self-sustaining presence, a real presence. Like I said many times, if I'm holding this up in the air, it's in the air, but it's not a yesh in the air, because it is not self-maintaining. The minute you see it in the air, you don't say, this is in the air. No, it's being held up in the air. That's not a yesh. That's not a yesh. A yesh is, this cup is on the table. That's a yesh. It stands on its own. And therefore, how does yesh come to be me'ayin, where its background and its base is ayin? Yesh has to have a real presence. Where does it get a real presence if its source is ayin? In the ayin, the whole time we were talking about the derech mamela automatically. Automatically, it's possible when there is a presence in its source, but there is no such presence. Ayin. Therefore, we say, it does not come b'derech mamela and b'derech mamela automatically, because there is no presence in its source. It's ayin. How then that the yesh surface come into being, even though its base is ayin? And here is where we have to focus in and begin to recognize a completely different reality. Ki'im Rather, how does yesh come to be from the ayin? It comes to be alidei hislapshus ha'ayin ha'eliki, as a result, and as a result of the process. Hislapshus ha'ayin ha'eliki. The ayin ha'eliki is mislabish. Mislabish means it gets involved, gets personally identified with. Lahaves as hayesh, to bring forth the existence of the yesh. We spoke about this lapsus in the past, but now it is imperative. It's completely different requirement from this lapsus.
And this is lapsus means contrary to B'derech Mamaila?
Yes. Hislapshus ha'ayin ha'eliki. As I said, the basis of this whole discussion, which is ayin ha'eliki, is to us, we know it not with our seichel, not even with our chokhmah. We know it because of the power of the nekudas or emunah. It is imperative that we focus in on this principle. What in fact is this nekudas or emunah? Emunah is a nekuda, is a point, a principal point, which does not explain itself. It's not based on any kind of explanation of a describable presence. In fact, if we should put emunah this week in our seichel, emunah means that from my perspective, in my own means of knowledge, there's no way I can know it. All I know is that it happens. And it happens intentionally. And there is the one who makes it happen. And I trust this one 100%. I trust this one to the point where this defines the reality of all existence. I do not even attempt to decipher what it is, or to in any kind of way identify it. It is there because it is there. This is superior to my understanding. Despite the fact that it's superior to my understanding, it is very real to me. This is what I live with. This is the force that encourages me on a daily basis, on a momentary basis. To pursue life and pursue all challenges and face down all the challenges. This is the reality as far as I'm concerned. My reality is not the world that I observe. My reality is that which I do not see at all, with my eyes, with my seichel. This is emunah, and this permits us to conceptualize and to talk about yesh me'ayin. This which I have in my emunah is ayin. Let's talk about ayin for a moment. Ayin means the truth which does not need to explain itself. I always quote the Rambam, Motzu Irisha in the first page. And then Rabbi goes on and says, Amit is him also the truth of his presence. What means the truth of his presence? Where did this presence come from? And say, Amit, the truth of his presence. Then says, the truth of presence, that's emunah. Do we conceptualize that the presence is a truth? To us, presence is something which comes into being, which was made to be. But we have it in our neshamah, in our koach emunah, to recognize that no, presence is a truth. There's a truth to presence. And this truth of presence, this is the source of all, this is the base of all existence. This is the motzei d'Yishin. This is from a worldly perspective, it's a non-entity. It's AYIN. AYIN means it is there not by virtue of any kind of qualities and explanations. It's AYIN. It does not need to explain itself, because it's Amit is emotion. What needs to explain itself? Something that that allows for doubt, for question. But it does not allow for question. This is Amit is this is the truth itself. In our way down Misholim, this is what we say. We have recognize this is a home. There's two different ways to recognize this is a home. One is because we see it's very well appointed, it's prepared for human living, it's a home. And then we come into this house, and there's a human being sitting there. When you see the human being sitting there, you don't know that this is a home because of kind of an explanation. I've just read about the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov lived in his childhood, he lived in a hut, not fit for human occupation. And yet, he's produced a Baal Shem Tov. The spirit in this hut was AYIN. It's a divine truth. AYIN ho-eliki. Why does the word eliki help us in this? All of a sudden says, he slaps us, AYIN ho-eliki. AYIN is enough. What's a AYIN ho-eliki? The best way that I recognize to present these two words, AYIN ho-eliki, how is the eliki may bring it closer to us, make it possible to relate to it more. Eliki, you all know, comes from the word elikim, master. AYIN ho-eliki, which means I know about it because I was told by my master that I have to know this. Not because I discovered it on my own, with my own research. I'm not convincing myself, I'm not convinced on my own of the AYIN ho-eliki. I know about the AYIN ho-eliki because the AYIN ho-eliki told me about it. It's eliki, it's the master, and I'm in the realm, in the reality of this eliki. Because I'm the reality of the key of the master, I'm not questioning the master. How is he able to do this? Where is he coming from? That is beyond question. There's a master. He's in a different status, in a different state, different level. He's not on my level. In my level, I need to explain where do I get this and where does this come from. I have a key. That's on a different arena. The AYIN or the key, that which is not definable, but it's on the key level. On the key level means that it's not even within my purview to go to try to identify it. Excuse me. This AYIN or the key is a reality beyond our conceptualization. To the extent that this AYIN or the key, if he slavish, if he focuses in and decides that there should be a yesh materializes. His slapshus, who AYIN or the key means, and the AYIN or the key, you've read about his slapshus many times, being dressed in other words, being identified with. But the AYIN or the key identifies itself with the principle of creation. Then the principle of creation is reflective of what? Of AYIN or the key. It's the existence, the yesh, exists on the level where AYIN or the key. You can't question it. You can't question its existence. It's real. This is where all the various things that we discussed about the world and how the godly aspects in the world, how that identifies the world and the truth. We said day versus light, two totally different concepts. Light is a presence within world parameters. Light has a source, and there's a beam that comes and it illuminates it. Day has no worldly means of explanation. It's AYIN or the key. This is what the Rebbe showed. By him Elohim, this is oil and light coming directly from Elohim. Not via the means and the procedure, the Kant and the material through which it came into being. It comes directly from AYIN or the key. As it's discussed many times in this moment, a human being cannot create a product, a table. He creates a table by taking planks of wood and putting them together, and the table results. The table itself is in his seichel, in his concept. And he is imitating in his building the boards. They should resemble a table. But Elikus creates the reality directly. Not there should be a moir, a luminary. There should be light. That's Elikus. Daylight is a divine reality. It's not a worldly reality. As we discussed it many, many times. In order to create, to bring about this type of divine level presence, a yesh, of a key, it has to come from his slapshus or ayin aliki. Slapshus or ayin aliki, his mislabish identifies itself with this creation. In other words, there is no way to relate to world without identifying, along with that, the Creator. This world is yesh me'ayin. There's a Creator behind it. It does not have its own presence. But there's a Creator behind it. And the Creator has put himself into this identity that I am a creator. And that is how the creation comes to be. This was the slapshus of slapshus. Slapshus means that Elokus defined itself as a creator, not as a presence, in its own realm. He slapshus ayin aliki lahavish as a yesh, to bring about the existence of the yesh. That gives the yesh a basis for existence. Because yesh cannot be without a basis. Ayin is ayin. But when the ayin says, yeah, but I decided that I'm focusing in that there should be a yesh. And this focus, this is slapshus, this focus of the ayin, this is the basis of this justifies the yesh. This is how the yesh can accept its own existence. Coming back to us in our yesh, in our world, we can accept our own existence by virtue. What's the meaning of our existence? There is God wants us to be, and God to give us a path and a directive how we should be. This gives us a presence in the world. This gives us a presence. All right. So despite the fact that it is slapshus, the slapshus itself is to be defined as ayin aliki, a divine level of ayin. Divine means it's above, exists above world. It's not a worldly presence. But he identifies himself with the creation of the world. And that gives the world a presence. So yesh me'ayin can only be recognized and related to, if you recognize that there is ayin aliki, that makes it be. That maintains it. This is where the holding up of this item in the air is a precise motion for us. You cannot conceptualize this thing being in the air without recognizing of the hand that holds it up. These are two things which are not separable. You do not say this thing is in the air, but something is holding it up. No, the definition of it being in the air is that it's being held up. It's not in the air at all. This is the Ayin Elokei that holds up, that creates the world. There's no world but for the Ayin Elokei that decided that it should be. This is what gives the world a presence, a right to, and a possibility of existence. This is called hislapshus. That the Ayin Elokei had identified itself. The Ayin Elokei, this is the yesh, so to speak, this is the material from which it is made. And this Ayin Elokei is mislabish, identifies itself with creation. So that the creation is not a byproduct, but the creation is expressing the presence of the Ayin Elokei and the will of the Ayin Elokei. So that the world we walk in is not the world per se. It's a world that the Ayin Elokei wants, and that's the reality within which we function. This is why in our world there's a right and a wrong automatically. Because it does not have a worldly presence. There's the Ayin Elokei that is a reality. And the Ayin Elokei has a defined vision, what it wants from its world. What kind of world does he want? A world that has Ayin Elokei as its buttress, as its base. And if you ignore that, we have no world.
Can I ask something?
Okay, Reb Shlomo, go ahead. Yes, sir.
I'm trying to understand because hislapshus helps it helps to relate to worlds. So is it to say that the course is being able to be perceived in the world through this hislapshus? Otherwise, without this hislapshus, there would not be an ability to perceive a course.
That's right.
Whatever.
That's right. If a lakus did not express itself in the world, we would not know of a lakus.
You know, if it's hislapshus.
That's right.
Can you ask the question?
Just one second. I want to complete this. We have to project this a little bit on a broader in our world. What is a child? What is the definition of a principal in a school to a child? What's a principal? What does a child know about a principal? What does a child know about a teacher? A teacher is the one who stands in the class and I have to obey what he says. A principal is the one who runs the school. This is the definition of a principal. But you know it from your level. And your level is buttressed, is supported by this reality that there's a principal. This school without a principal just fall apart. You don't see the principle everywhere. Yes, you see it everywhere. As long as the school is running, you know there's a principle there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to, about the word identify with, you mentioned, I believe before, recognize, right? The word identify with, it's recognize. Recognize it as, right? Because that just wanted to understand the word identify with better. It's like recognizing something. Are you identifying with that? Are you recognizing it? Is that the right word?
Yes, but you have to understand. Like we said about Ayin Elokei, recognizing means a seichel level on recognition.
which is the.
You don't see it with your eyes. You can't touch it with your hands.
Okay.
The seichel, we mentioned many times. The seichel is the derivative. As I said, from chokhmah, and chokhmah derivative of emunah, which is the reality of neshamah, of life itself.
Mm-hmm.
This is where